O king, my king, I've been working on a project and have therefore been somewhat occupied. However, much has happened in the last 3 months and a report is due. And so if I could have your ears for 10 minutes, let's go. 1. The church still has something of a power struggle against the rigid Pharisaism of those priests who want to start their mass with Introibo ad altare Dei. Why the church has picked this battle out of all battles out there to pick is an extreme mystery to everyone on the outside looking in. Why pick a fight with your own orthodoxy? It's like giving a kid a rifle and the kid could shoot anything at anything he wants. But if he shoots at the mom, it reveals a lot about the kid and what the kid struggles with. How can your own orthodoxy be a great evil to you? It's like Jezebel hunting Elijah, and I wish it wasn't. 2. Following in the truckers' convoy in Canada that happened a couple of years ago, as a result of government crackdowns, I should say, farmers from all over Europe have become so irritated with the ridiculous green agenda, which I should call the real prophets of doom, and they have carried on massive protests throughout Europe, disrupting city centers in several countries. 3. Speaking of the green agenda, one of the greatest causes of a shift in climate in our times is the migration of our magnetic poles, which you won't really hear talked about, as well as the Earth's weakening magnetic field, which you also won't hear talked about. The only agency man has in terms of climate is to do with being in a good relationship with God. Prayer and penance is the only remedy to disaster. It always has been, and it always will be. 4. The year 2024 is supposed to be one with a lot of skirmishing and war around the globe, according to Seer Father Oliveira, which is not his actual name, but we understand the reference as this. 5. Economic disaster is still on the horizon. This is a boat being steered towards a crash by lunatics who want a one-world currency, inadvertently building the kingdom of the son of perdition for him. 6. I expect economic problems to ramp up in Europe over this year and the coming next few years. Many people are dealing with increased property tax all over the Western world right now, thanks to inflation, and it's going to cause a drastic rise in the poverty line. 7. Although people are becoming more politically aware in our times, we're going to enter times where they're finally going to start becoming more spiritually aware. Patience, my king, that time will come. 8. If you need to look at a graph of how degenerate the world and the nations are on an individual basis, just look at the number of abortions taking place in each of these respective nations, and that'll tell you most of the story. 9. Politicians are increasingly corrupted by lobbyists who have found excellent ways to launder money in order to influence policy, which include expensive speeches and insider trading on stocks. 10. If a politician gets elected, a good gauge on where they are prophetically is measured by what their relationship is like with the forsaken ones who now have a nation under the banner of David but are of the synagogue of evil. If they're friends with the forsaken ones, well, they're probably not your friends, my king. 11. The New Age movement is demonic, but there's more to it than that. A spiritual awakening is coming for us, which is why you'll get recognized, my king, and that spiritual awakening will actually move man away from artifice rather than deepen it. We do not have a technologically advanced future. It will turn the other way when the great comet comes, I'm sure. 12. I've seen the great comet in a vision. Read Isaiah 6 for details. Passages in Isaiah 22 and Daniel 12 will give you a hint to the results. Remember that a year is not necessarily a year as we understand it to be, and a day is not necessarily a day as we understand it to be, and an hour is not necessarily an hour as we understand it to be. The great sign of Fatima on October 13, 1917 is another clue. I'm not a prophet, my king. I only see things and relate them as they were related by prophets. 13. The globalists, the evil ones, and not the universalism of the true church, may go to sleep for a few years, but they will wake up with great wrath in a few years. Do not let your guard down, but be vigilant. A viper strikes out of the silence. 14. Seers continue to speak, and it's amplifying now, so much so that it's hard to keep track of all of them. The illumination of conscience is an event oft mentioned and worth studying. 15. When the terrors begin in this world, we will know immediately that it comes from higher powers and forces, and not something man-made. 16. They talk of extraterrestrial life, but do not listen to such. But consider that Hades may actually be a physical place which houses evils of the past. 17. Nations have a parasite that buys out its pedagogues and infects the people with propaganda and pedagogy that is friendly with the forsaken ones. Remember that they are forsaken by God and choose to bear the mark of Cain. They are not to be killed, as God will judge them, but all parasites to a nation are not welcome. 18. A vast amount of resources are being spent on the Ukrainian situation, which is under severe persecution right now. Where the soil turns is where the fields are ripe for harvest, keep in mind. 19. There will come a time when trade currencies will begin to be abandoned. The farmers are where it will begin, since they are the most essential needs, or they have the most essential needs of humankind. If the military acts against the farmers, communism will curse those nations and condemn their citizens to mass starvation. If new currencies are created apart from the corruption of bankers, merchants, traders, politicians, and the militaries they control, the economy will resurrect. 20. Those lands wounded greatly now will rise up as mountains of God, for God finds us faithful among those who are burnished with great fire. 21. It's either penance or chastisement, but where those are owed and paid for, the land becomes clean. Otherwise, the curse remains until the price is paid. 22. In the triumph of the Immaculate Heart, we know that this will be a time for great saints to arise if they can combat difficulties. It's not the triumph of evil, but a call for strength that God believes we have. 23. But it will triumph. God already knows the score. The players, all they have to do is play as hard as possible despite.